My palm rested on the old wooden door, paint flecked like time no one bothered to dust. Inside, it smelled like strong coffee, oiled pine, and floor wax, the kind of scent only veteran halls carry. The flag on the little stage lifted in the AC's draft and clicked against its pole, whispering this would be a different kind of fight. I straightened my dress blues, fingers riding the seam the way you nudge your spine not to forget itself. Military cosplay. My father's voice dropped clean and low, enough to bite the back of my neck. A few chuckles stapled the air to the wall. Tyler probably started it, the laugh of a man used to applause between PowerPoint slides who's never heard the applause that happens in mud. I didn't turn. The first 30 seconds of any entry matter more than every excuse that follows. Ethan brushed my elbow. His old dog tag sat cool and heavy beneath his shirt, the kind of weight that keeps your steps on vector. "I'm here," he murmured, barely moving his mouth. Since leaving the Navy, he's learned to save people with quiet. In uniform, I learned to use quiet so I don't lose myself. We stood one beat, drew a breath, like the last obstacle of a very long course was right ahead. At the check-in table, a silver-haired vet looked up with eyes surprisingly clear. He gave me the small nod I know from the field, economical, concentrated, more permission than a speech. I nodded back, and I swear I could hear dry mud flake off my soles. Mom stepped out from the rows in a deep blue dress, shoulders tucked like she was borrowing someone else's light. "You look beautiful," she said, gaze pausing on the black-sheathed ceremonial sword at my side before it slid away, as if my father might catch her looking. I didn't hug her, not out of anger, because that gesture would call a family vote, and today I needed a clear lane. "Do you want to change into something softer?" The MC whispered, both hands shaking around the program list. I saw myself reflected in her eyes, a woman in knife-sharp blues standing in a room of lace and silk ties. "No," I said. "We run as briefed." I heard my own voice and thought of rehearsals, of all the times I stood in a logistics bay and said, "Stick to the plan," even when the sky outside looked ready to cave. My father held court by the bar, red tie, mirror-shine shoes. He didn't look at me again. Tyler was mid-story about his latest deal. The men around him laughed on cue and sipped on tempo, a house band playing familiar charts. "Don't make noise," I told my heart. "This isn't our field. Truth is, I've never been given a field. Maybe that's why I learned to build one wherever I'm standing." Ethan slid his hand down to mine, thumbs circling the little bones of my wrist. "Remember to breathe." I remembered the night he pulled me up the apartment steps after a rain-soaked range day and a messy convoy, handed me hot cocoa instead of advice. He has the kind of calm you get from seeing blood and knowing when a cut needs stitches, and when it needs a bandage and time. I didn't need directions today. I needed a witness. A side door cracked, then closed. I caught First Sergeant Alina Ruiz's silhouette in a no-nonsense black suit, a slim flash of steel under her sleeve. No one noticed, but I knew it was one of the swords we'd polished. If I bailed, if I went softer, the operation we'd built all week could stand down. Part of me considered texting her that exact phrase, but my hand was already back on the seam, and even with military cosplay still ringing in my ribs, nothing in me leaned back. I walked the aisle runner slow, counting on my fingertips like I count axle beats in a convoy. 1, 2, 3, breathe. 4, 5, 6, straighten. 7, 8, eyes up. The white-clothed tables on either side hummed like chip seal under tires. A younger vet, 40, maybe pulled a chair for an older woman. When I passed, he dipped a reflex salute. I returned the smallest of nods, the kind people who have worn uniforms recognize like a password. "Do you really need the sword in the ceremony?" Mom again, more afraid than critical. I met her eyes and saw a woman who spent years at parties where business cards do the small talk. "I'm not carrying it to cut anyone," I said. I'm carrying it to remember what it cost me to stand still. She pressed her lips, swallowing a bitter pill. Your father can't handle spectacle. I smiled without humor. I spent most of my youth where nobody saw anything. Today isn't spectacle. Today is naming things. The MC slid over to ask if I'd like to reshuffle remarks. A few important guests are running late. I looked at the rows. Our families place cards clustered together like a busy island in a sea of names that belong to my unit. No changes, I said. Last-minute reseating is how power protects its comfort by exporting inconvenience. I've carried heavy loads my whole life. I'm not shouldering theirs today. Tyler cut across, eyes skimming my uniform like it was a prop. You doing a show? He smirked. Don't make Dad uncomfortable. Big crowd. I wanted to tell him mud never draws a crowd, only the ones who stay learn it's warm. I said, relax, I'm here to get married. He shrugged and drifted off, leaving too much cologne behind. I touched the sheathed hilt. Under the cool leather was steel passed through a lot of hands in ceremonies before mine, promotions, farewells, colors posted. No one dies here. The only thing a blade kills in this room is the washed-out string tying other people's assumptions to my wrist. I thought of Ruiz's note, neat and tight. Earn it, Marine. Some days I borrow that line to plant a foot on the floor. Today I borrowed it to lift my chin. A young server nearly bit the carpet with a tray of glasses. I caught the edge, everything rattled and settled. Thank you, ma'am, he whispered, blushing. I nodded and let go. The tray found its orbit. I almost laughed. My life is a parade of trays like that. Tiny moments that, if dropped, splash everyone. People tell women to be more careful so we don't spill. No one asks who laid the rug crooked. A shape moved in close behind me. Kid, my father didn't raise his voice, he hardened it. I expect you to be reasonable. No one here wants to be embarrassed. I turned. He stood straight, eyes slick as fresh varnish. I didn't come to embarrass anyone, I said, surprised at how light my voice was. I came not to bend. He glanced at the sword, then turned away like he'd just checked off a box to be removed. I watched his back, saw my mother shrink beside the man she keeps choosing. The side door cracked again. A blade-thin stripe of light flashed and went dark. My heartbeat shifted from held to steady, not because I hurt less, but because the mission had called my name. Ethan thumbed his dog tag and drew a slow breath. Whenever you're ready. I looked at him and saw the flicker of night shifts and quiet bandages in his eyes. I nodded. I didn't live through a decade to ask permission to stand up straight. We're starting in a few minutes. The MC puffed by like a worried breeze. I let the hilt go and adjusted my glove. One last pass down the seam. I was about to text Ruiz one word, proceed. But before the screen lit, the side door opened, and the first sound I heard wasn't music. It was metal kissing metal, thin and cold, the sound of morning tapping a fingernail against the rim of a glass. I lifted my head, and didn't text at all. Highway 17 stitches our town like a long, uneven seam. When the sun flips up, the blacktop breathes a harsh, tarry smell. I grew up on that seam, between the clang of wrenches on Dad's shop floor and the distant horn of ships near the base. Dad hung a gold-framed photo of Tyler with a football trophy, polished so often dust didn't dare land. My J-Rock picture lived in a drawer, glass cracked with a thin vein no one mentioned. Dinner at our house smelled like fryer oil and mechanic's hand soap. Dad told stories about difficult customers. Tyler repeated whatever his coach praised that week. When I tried to talk about marching with J-Rock, Dad cut in. Uniforms will ruin you, kid. Money holds a family together. He said money like a virtue. Mom slid a piece of chicken onto my plate and looked away, as if enough fried food could fill the hole where an answer should go. The day I said Marine Corps, Dad laughed without joy. Mud and rifles, you think you can handle that? Who's going to marry a girl who plays tough? That question hovered in our house for years. Tyler smirked. If you like uniforms, join the army band. They've got brass. I didn't answer. I stepped outside, studying the crusted streaks of mud along the lawn after a night rain, letters from no one. I pressed a heel into one. It cracked, quiet, clean. Something in that sound pulled my spine taller. The church bell tower wore a green rind of moss. Every Christmas, the youth choir lined up in red dresses around a fake tree. Mom nudged me into their row and said I should practice being feminine. Through the window, I watched Marines climb out of pickups at the convenience store, sleeves dirty, forearms mapped with tiny cuts. The way they walked made that red dress loosen around my knees. I tried to be both good and stubborn. My grades held, chores got done. I pulled shifts at the shop. But when Tyler won a game, Dad threw a party. When I placed at a marksmanship meet, Dad said, "Don't brag, what's a girl need to shoot for?" My J-Rock instructor told Dad I had leadership potential. Dad nodded like adults do in public and later told me by the pumps, "School leadership is a game. Real life needs earners." I remember a late afternoon out by the garage, sun painting a streak of orange over fading billboards. "If you go uzmk," Dad said, hands black with grease, "don't expect us to be proud. This house isn't proud of mud." He tossed the rag into the bin. It hit with a thick, wet thud. I nodded. I'd already learned some fights aren't won with words. When the acceptance packet came, Mom opened it first. Her lips pinched, her eyes filled to the rim without spilling. "Are you sure?" she asked. I nodded. "Your father." She braked the sentence like a truck downshifting. I put the letter in her hand. "I'll be fine," I said, "even if nobody's proud." She smoothed the edge of the envelope with her thumb like she could sand the world flat. On the day I left, Dad didn't come to the door. He hid behind the counter and pretended to drown in invoices. Tyler clapped my shoulder. "Go see the world. When you're bored, come back." I shouldered my pack and opened the door. Noon heat rushed in with the smell of rubber and glue. The sky looked blank white, an unwritten page. I didn't make promises, I made a choice. OCS stripped the spackle off 18. The mud there talked. It climbed your boots and whispered. Posers get found out. I got found out a lot. Some days I lost the push-up count. Some nights I blew the lead on obstacles. In my head, Dad said, "Don't expect us to be proud." Tyler's laugh fell like marbles on concrete. Rain rattled the tent, steady as someone else's heart. I swallowed and moved, not fast, but never out of line. I wrote home. Mom sent floral cards with round letters and soft phrases. "Hang in there, it'll be okay." Dad never wrote. On a short weekend back, he asked, "How much do they pay?" And didn't wait for an answer. I hung my clean uniform to dry. Sun and soap braided their smells. Mom brought clothespins. "It's pretty," she said. "Don't wear it in front of your father, he doesn't like it." My heart shrank like sun-baked mud, then stretched again because I refused to crack. The church held a service for military. Men stood with hats over hearts while the pastor's voice dropped an octave. I stood, heat rising up my neck. Afterward, an aunt said, "Sweetheart, you look so nice in a dress. Those dark uniforms so gloomy." I smiled and didn't argue. In my head, the flag in the corner swayed once as if nodding just to me. I met Ethan during a school visit to the clinic when he was a corpsman on community support. He didn't smile much or ask many questions, just the right ones. He wrapped a nick on my wrist from a wire fence. "Don't let it get infected," he said, voice as neutral as gauze. He carried a quiet I trusted. When I told Dad, he raised an eyebrow. "A medic? Huh, that's a job." He stretched the word job like a rubber band waiting to snap someone. At graduation, Mom came and stood in the back, clutching her purse until the straps left red marks. Dad had a big customer. I took the certificate with sweat in my collar and the faint smell of dry mud like a private toast. That photo never made a wall. I kept a small print tucked into the back of my notebook. a secret to remind myself I wasn't dreaming. Tyler thrived. His pictures multiplied across the hallway in fresh frames. Every visit felt like walking a museum with talking floors. Careful, don't touch. Dad asked again, when are you quitting this phase? Come work with me, learn from Tyler. Smart women know when to step back. I looked at my hands, short nails, small calluses at the second knuckle. I'm stepping forward, I said. He shook his head like at a nail that refuses a board. The town could soften me too. One fall afternoon, leaves fell like slow confetti across the churchyard and pumpkin pie drifted out of the fellowship hall. Mom pinned a wheat sheaf brooch to my sweater. I don't mind you being strong, she said. I'm afraid you'll be lonely. I hugged her, rare. I'll learn belonging, I said, not yet knowing it meant choosing who stays when others leave. Orders to Lejeune came. I walked one last loop through Dad's garage. Tyler's picture still hung. Oil still mapped little islands across the floor. Dad bent over the air compressor, never looking up. I wanted a sentence that closed a chapter or opened one. I said nothing. I hung the spare car key on a nail by the door. My back brushed the wood frame and prickled like standing at the edge of a rain-dark forest. Driving out, I passed the Camp Lejeune sign for the first time. Black letters on white, blunt as a warning, easy as a welcome. The sky stacked thick clouds, patches of blue like a faded flag. I lowered the window. Air rushed in with pine and wet earth. I thought about the men Dad called mud. I thought about myself, a girl who picked mud over red carpet. My chest went light, the way it does when a palette finally clicks onto the right shelf. Years later, standing in dress blues at that VFW threshold, I could still hear a wrench hit the garage floor, my father laughing, the church flag whispering in conditioned air. None of it vanished. It just settled into a backing track. And I knew the next pages of my life weren't going to be written at the ward dinner table. The road ahead didn't need more arguments. It needed mud, sweat, and a leader who didn't close her eyes to her own fear. Somewhere soon, in red rain and standing water, there'd be a test with my name on it. I was ready to take it with my chin up and a quiet secret stitched inside my ribs. If no one hands you permission, issue it yourself. I stepped out of memory and back into the VFW on one long breath. In front of me, an empty aisle and the ring of fresh metal. Behind me, a whole town that never learned my name right. Between them, me and the stretch of mud I was born to cross. Lejeune mud runs red like someone stirred brick dust into the rain. It doesn't just dirty you. It lives. It climbs boots and hems, reaches your knees like it has fingernails. On my first morning running our platoon through an in-house crucible, the sky sat heavy and the pines breathed steam. I yelled step, and the mist ate half my voice. Sweat slid down my collar cold as salt water. The wall looked low until my palms met it coarse as 60 grit. I hauled up, shoulders burning, trousers rasping wood. Behind me, Lance Corporal Pike puffed. "Ma'am, I don't know." I started to bark, keep moving, then caught his eyes and remembered being 18, standing under a wall I'd sworn was shorter. We cleared it. Not pretty, not fast, but breathing together. By the litter carry, the sky cut loose. Lejeune rain falls sideways, fat drops like someone else's determination. The litter skated in the slurry, straps waterlogged, the air a blend of wet canvas and CLP bleeding off slung M16, a smell I'll never forget. I slipped, knee punched into the mud, spray cussing up my shins. Sergeant Bennett yanked me up like she was rescuing a dropped wallet. "You're fine, ma'am. Up." I stood. Pride squealed once inside my ribs, then quieted like an engine after oil. I blew my first real error on the rope lead. I overtalked, issued orders an NCO should own. Ropes creaked, mud-chewed boots, 1 full minute of avoidable tangle. Ruiz said nothing then. Arms folded, eyes unblinking, she let me hear my own cadence go off. When we finally made it through, she drifted past and tossed a dry stick of a sentence. Delegation isn't surrender, it's trust. I didn't argue. I knew I'd shouted instead of trusting. By afternoon, the mud darkened and my blouse changed smell. I kept a small folded flag in my outer pocket, graduation habit, and touched its damp edge when my breath shortened. People call flags symbols. That day it was fabric keeping my hand from shaking. A week later, we rolled into a convoy block. Forecast said storm, clouds stacked like steel plates, wind lashed, the road went black glass. Spacing, lights, radio. No one loses the line, Bennett said, all clip, no fluff. I rode right seat up front, headset biting my temples. We crawled out the gate and tires cut twin grooves in the mud, opening a road for a story nobody loves in the middle. 5 miles good. At 6, high water turned the lane into a mirror. I heard tire whine behind us, fishtail. Pike's voice shook over the net. Vehicle 3 partial loss. I twisted in my harness and saw his tail wag a hooked fish. Adrenaline kicked my old knee ache awake. I wanted to yell the movie line, punch it. But Bennett beat me on comms. Ease, keep straight, breathe. She fed the words like coaxing a kid across a narrow bridge. Vehicle 3 settled, spray fanning out. The whole line exhaled into the rain. I nodded at Bennett. She didn't look. She was busy holding the invisible tether between bumpers. At the rally, we pitched tarps, stacked pallets, ran counts like multiplication tables. Pike was retying straps with hands that still trembled. That's when I made mistake number 2. You shaking because you're scared? I said. His mouth tightened, eyes dropped classroom shame. I'd put a boot on a Marine's pride. Bad form, too late to unsay, only time to fix. I circled back when the crowd thinned. Pike, that was dumb of me. His head snapped up. I shake all the time, I added, tapping my own chest. I just learned a trick, breathe. He grinned crooked. Ma'am, I thought officers don't shake. We just hide it better, I said. After that, he moved like a hinge properly greased. Inside me, a knot from my first months in the bars loosened. Admitting you're wrong doesn't lower you, it firms the ground. That night, the rain drummed our tarp like someone throwing handfuls of gravel. A cold stripe ran down my spine where blouse met belt. I sat on a crate counting issue lists, the smell of wet paper and ink mixing with motor T gear. Ruiz appeared, no fanfare, hands jammed in a rain jacket. She passed me a small folded scrap, paper edges woolly from damp. Read it later, she said. I opened it anyway, nothing stays dry out here. 3 printed words, block pen, straight lines, earn it Marine. The ink blotted a dot over the I, like a swallowed exclamation. I didn't ask what it was. I knew, the right to stand, to lead, to look yourself in the eye when you peel off a glove. Next morning, the storm hadn't quit. Convoy 2 rolled, I talked less. The net carried only what mattered. Bennett owned spacing, Pike double-checked straps. I watched through wet glass and practiced trusting other people's hands. A branch dropped across half the lane. Nobody panicked. Bennett signaled, 3 clean moves, and we flowed around it like water finding a gap. I heard my own breath lighten, not from relief but from recognition. The formation had become a team. We hit the lot at last, boots sunk, rain earth everywhere. A new kid was hunched over a crate, back rounded. I grabbed the far handle. We lifted, set, squared. He looked at me a beat like he didn't buy it. I nodded. On deck, some things don't need words. Objects moving into the right places are sentence enough. Ethan stopped by the aid corner to eval a sprain. I caught his eye through cloudy plastic, foggy as rain-smeared safety glasses. He flashed 2 fingers. Good, I flashed back. We don't talk much when we work. Stories unspool over hot chow. Before he left, he slid a roll of tape and a couple mints onto my crate, the medic's care package. I don't eat candy, but I unwrapped one and let the cool cut the taste of mud out of my throat. Wind worried the tent that night. The hanging flashlight jittered on its cord. I pulled the little flag, ran a thumb along its damp edge. Somewhere a small radio wheezed the national anthem through dying batteries. I didn't sing. I listened to the bed track I'd chosen. Ruiz ducked her head into the flap, voice low. "Tomorrow, let Bennett open the brief. You close, let him hear another voice." "Roger," I said. It was her way of teaching me to step down at the right time so I could step up at the right one. At first light, we formed up. Bennett briefed, short, clean. I closed with 3 sentences and a look. "No one was perfect yesterday. We won't be today, but we will be less dumb than yesterday." A scratch of laughter. Pike stood a click taller. I tucked Ruiz's slip into my glove where the edge would touch my wrist when I made a fist. Earn it, not a poster on a wall. A private order to muscle fiber. When the last convoy rolled in, mud fanned off tailgates like earth-colored fireworks. I stepped off into the lot, boots burping out of the muck. The sound felt like a promise. Do your part and the ground will carry you. Across the way, the post flag was soaked dark, hugging the pole, then peeling back in the wind like a lung drawing air. I passed Ruiz. She didn't hand me praise. She said, "See." "See what?" "The ground didn't change," she said, one corner of her mouth tipping. "You did. You learned where to put your feet." I grinned, teeth clicking with cold. That night, I'd write those 3 words inside my notebook cover. "Earn it, Marine." And the next time someone told me, "Don't embarrass anyone," I'd remember, honor isn't for show. It's how you stand when no one grants you permission. Before we cleared the lot, I looked across the line. Backs bent, then straight, hands dirty, then clean. I thought about my family. Not the one I was born to, but this one in CLP and rain, teaching me the only language my father never learned. Trust proved by doing. Somewhere ahead waited a field, Thanksgiving with canned pumpkin and smoke-stinging eyes. First, though, I wanted dry socks, hot soup, and a quiet minute to tuck that paper back where it belonged. Next to my heart, no maple print tablecloths, no glossy turkey, just red dirt still smelling like last night's rain and tire tracks scrawled across it like messy handwriting. We rigged a tarp, tied corners to a water can and a steel stake. Wind moved under it, the canvas ballooning and settling like a chest. A beat-up radio pushed warped country songs, the singer's voice slogging through mud. I worked a tent pin deeper, breathing CLP, smoke, and earth. The kind of mix that, weirdly, reads as home. Bennett rolled out a DIY grill cobbled from a cracked wheel rim and laid out marinated pork in Ziplocs. She hit it with oil and the flame jumped. Her face glowed pink under the jittering tarp light. "This is my turkey," she declared, the half-smile of someone who decided holidays need the right people more than the right menu. Pike lugged a box of care packages scavenged from the admin office. Candy, thick socks, letters, and, miracle of miracles, 2 cans of pumpkin pie filling. He held them up like trophies. "We've got dessert, ma'am," he yelled, voice pitching high when smoke blew his way. I handed out gloves and checked the ration sheet, ticking boxes like always. But each tick carried more weight today. Less an inventory, more a roll call. This one's here, that one's here, and between those names a meal will happen. Ruiz drifted up, arms folded, eyes sweeping the setup, neat enough, not parade. "If the rain returns, cook out of the wind line," she said. "Aye, First Sergeant." She paused, eyes almost smiling. "Holiday doesn't waive discipline." "Roger." Ethan came late with a medical pack on his shoulder, jacket splattered with fresh mud. He parked the bag in a dry corner and pulled a second Ziploc, marshmallows, a snapped chocolate bar, packets of cocoa. "No turkey today," he said, "but I can treat sugar withdrawal." The young ones whooped. Somebody cracked. H.M. brought the real supplies. Ethan blinked a slow wink. "Easy, after chow." I caught his eyes. He tapped his dog tag, one of those small touches that remembers night shifts and the truth that sometimes a sweet hit is the only thing that carries you through. When grease smoke settled into hair and collars, conversation lit like coals. A Lance Corporal told us about leaving Nebraska, how his mom tucked a tiny cross in his boot. Another flipped his phone to a picture of his 3-month-old in a knit cap 2 sizes too big. Pike read a round-lettered note from his kid sister. "Wear warm socks. Don't let your feet get cold." We laughed, then went quiet, the way a warm kitchen from far away can pour through ink. I remembered old Thanksgivings, our table, football on TV, my father tapping a fork for order because the game was starting. I learned to shrink in my chair there. Here, people naturally expanded to fit the frame. Laughter popped like fat in a pan. There's a kind of peace that doesn't need permission. Bennett flipped meat, drips hissed. I salted and peppered, then handed Pike a can opener. He worked the blade slow along the tin lip, the lid popping free with a deeply satisfying tack. We scooped pumpkin onto plastic trays and cut it with a field knife, each serving a little square of wobbly sky. "Here," I told Ruiz. She arched a brow. "Bribing the first sergeant?" I grinned. "Nope, distributing the weight of sugar." She snapped off the smallest piece, chewed, and gave a single approving nod, the kind that stamps a form. Ethan pulled me close to the grill. "Wanna call home, holiday and all?" I looked at my phone, the place where Mom's missed calls like to hide on days like this. I shook my head. "Later." I didn't say the quiet between my parents could swallow any blessing whole. I just didn't want a ringtone slicing this meal in two. We built a table from 2 pallets and a slab of board. I smoothed a clean trash bag over it like a makeshift tablecloth, some tiny ritual no one taught me. The line formed itself, no shoves, no dumb jokes, just ma'am, sir, thanks, and the clink of spoons. When I got to the front, Bennett dropped an extra piece on my plate, mock serious. "Medical order, CO needs protein." From the back, Ethan waggled a cocoa packet. "Grunt coffee." I held out a hand and a warm cup slid into it, the chocolate powder and smoke combining into a new flavor I knew would stick to memory. After we ate, we made a lopsided circle, boots touching mud, shoulders easy, and took turns naming thanks. Pike thanked the road for not flipping him yesterday. We clapped his back. Bennett thanked the wind for not stealing the grill. Ruiz thanked the platoon for not using a holiday as an excuse to forget the mission. When it was my turn, I said, "Thanks for being allowed to stand in this circle." "Allowed to stand" popped out clean and true, like pressing ready before a quail fire. Dusk thickened and the rain returned, more powder than drops. Somebody pulled a flag from a ruck, big enough to matter, small enough not to drag. We propped it on a stick tied paracord, set it where the gusts wouldn't rip it free. The fabric pasted to the shaft, then breathed loose again. No slogans, none needed. We just watched it a minute, each of us thinking of a different roof. I laid a hand on my chest, felt the folded note under my blouse. "Earn it, Marine." In the rain, the line didn't boom, it glowed like coals under ash. I heard it anyway, clearly. Ethan passed marshmallows. The kids speared them on spoon handles and coaxed them toward flame. They puffed and charred, so sweet the smoke tasted like sugar. I ate half and my teeth stuck. I laughed. "What?" Bennett asked. "I just officially lost my war with sweets," I said. "Welcome to humanity," she snorted, the kind of morale order she issues when someone gets too grim. Cleanup ran itself. Someone rolled the tarp, someone policed trash, someone tamped the coals. I made a loop for a last check, picked a pumpkin lid from behind a bin, and studied the crosshatch of boot prints. In the center, a patch of flattened earth where we'd passed trays all afternoon, oddly smooth. I set my boot right there and felt like I was standing in the hub of a spinning wheel, perfectly still. "We're good," I told no one, just the wind. Near the barracks, my phone buzzed. "Mom, Happy Thanksgiving, honey. Your father asks if you're free to swing by the wards tomorrow, family get-together. I stopped under an awning. My jacket steamed like a day exhaling. My team filed inside, their laughter snagged on the doorway light like a friendly blade. I typed, on duty, eat well. Deleted, it was good, Mom. Added, I'm okay. Both true and thin as a shield. She replied, good. Tomorrow your father wants to discuss the wedding. The screen dimmed and my reflection ghosted back. A small chill trickled down my neck that had nothing to do with rain. I pocketed the phone, snugged a button, and my hand found the seam again. In my pocket, Ruiz's paper brushed skin like a fingertip. I followed my Marines into the light, carrying smoke, pumpkin, and a brand new feeling tucked behind my sternum. Next time someone asks, "Where's your family?" I can point to a crooked grill, a wet flag, a ring of people, and answer steady. Somewhere outside the gate, the ward's party was waiting for me to say the right lines at the right time. I knew I'd show up, but I wouldn't stand small. Chamber galas all smell the same. Perfume over fresh laundry starch, glassware clinking like practiced background music. Gold chandeliers poured honey on a floor buffed to a lake. I wore a simple dark blue dress because Mom said it would blend. Ethan knotted a dark tie, smiled at me in the mirror before we drove. If your chest tightens, look at me. I nodded and slid the ceremonial sword into the trunk, stashing a part of myself so I wouldn't scuff somebody else's floor. Dad posted up by the door like he owned the place, one hand on a glass, the other handing out that signature smile. He shook the mayor's hand, name-dropped everyone, narrated Tyler's latest deals loud enough for a third party to catch it. When it came time to introduce me, he said, "My daughter's in logistics. Strong kid, great at lifting." The line hit like a dented wrench, metal on metal, small bruise left behind. I sipped water to wet a dry mouth and thought about red mud where good at lifting means you bring everyone home. A portly man with a club pin asked why I didn't transition sooner, make life easier. I smiled polite and said my heart wasn't asking for rescue. He coughed into a stock tip. Mom floated over and tucked a loose strand behind my ear. Keep calm, okay. I remembered our circle around a bad grill and the taste of canned pumpkin. Suddenly I felt split screen, chandelier yellow on one side, dirt red on the other. Mix them and you get brown, heavy and true. When the MC toasted the next generation's success, Dad called Tyler up to speak. He said pivot, scale, disrupt, nouns standing stiff as a parade. Someone asked if I'd add an MBA after dinner. I said I study torque on tie-downs, clean radio nets, and timely admissions of fault. Eyebrows went up like I'd spoken a dialect. The warmest moment was Ethan extracting me from a table that wanted a debate about defense spending. He set a glass in my hand and steered me onto the balcony. Cool air rinsed my ears, my pulse unclenched. "You don't owe anyone a lecture tonight," he said, voice flat as a calm lake after a skipped stone. "Just breathe. Remember who you define pride for." I looked down at glossy bodies moving under light like chess pieces. The only flag here was a napkin folded into a swan. Near the end, Mom texted me to meet in the lot. Dad leaned on the car hood like punctuation. "I've decided," he said. "A wedding is family business. Don't turn it into a performance." "Define performance," I said. His eyes skimmed my hem like an inspector. "No uniform, no swords, no commands. People aren't used to that." "I don't wear it to show off," I answered, steady as reading an issue list. "I wear it to stand up straight." His mouth twitched. "No one's making you bend." "Since I was a kid," I said, "I've been bending to fit your frame." The air tightened like a ratchet cranked too hard. Mom slid between us. "Talk at home." That night, while I took off earrings, the texts landed. "Mom, he lost his temper. Could you give your father this one? Keep the peace." I was typing "I'll think about it" when the email hit. Subject line cold as a drip down the neck. Regarding the wedding, please be respectful. I opened it. Contract clean, no uniform, no sword. No UZMK references on stage. Otherwise, family won't attend. Financial support and other matters will be reconsidered. It closed with, "We hope you understand our hearts." I reread each word like inspecting fragile cargo. Nothing fragile about them. They were weights, set on my chest, waiting for me to fold to pick them up. I sat on the bed and didn't cry. Funny thing, what I felt first was humor. Even in stripping my honor, they wrapped it in respect. I set the phone down and my palm found the folded scrap in my wallet. Earn it, Marine. The ink had blurred at one corner with convoy sweat. What was it now? The right to wear the thing that holds my spine. The right to name the years I wasn't on the ward wall but was on every hand receipt I signed. Ethan came in, hair damp, 2 waters. He read my face, handed me one without asking. I passed him the phone. He scanned the email, lips pressed, then unlocked, like a medic who's seen too many 0200 calls and knows when to compress and when to just hold. "We don't need a dime from them," he said. "It's not about money," I said. "It's about Mom." He nodded. "I know, I also know you can't hang your dress blues in the closet on that day." I smiled, tired. "If they don't come, then it's still a wedding," he said, "with the people who stand for you." I drafted replies I didn't send, backspaced. I didn't want a keyboard argument, I wanted a plan. I opened my notebook and drew a vertical line down the middle. Left column, family by blood. Right, family by service. Names went under both. The right column fattened fast. Ruiz, Bennett, Pike, the young Marines, the VFW men whose nods carried weight. The left stayed thin, Dad, Mom, Tyler, a few aunts. It didn't hurt, it clarified. I called Mom, 4 rings. "Hi, honey." TV murmured football in the distance, a compressor's hum from my childhood. "Mom," I said, "I'm wearing dress blues. There will be a sword. There will be ceremony. I want you there. I won't change." The line went quiet like setting a teacup on carpet. "Your father will feel ashamed." "If standing up makes him ashamed," I said, "he can look away." Her sigh was a kettle leak. "Don't break the family." "Mom," I said, slow, "if it can't hold one person standing, it isn't a family, it's a stage." I apologized for the sharp edge and again because I knew she'd carry it to bed. After the call, I pulled the blues from the closet. Heavier than the dress, yes. But when the coat settled on my shoulders, my spine aligned on its own. I buttoned brass and thought of the invisible holes our family story had drilled in me over years. The uniform doesn't fill them. It taught me to stand with them. I texted Ruiz, "First Sergeant, I need you." She replied almost instantly, the kind who sleeps with the phone on vibrate. "Talk to me. I want ceremony, sword arch, my parents' object. I don't want noise, I want right." The dots jumped. "VFW in the morning, I'll do my part. You do yours, decide." I set the phone down, heart going as flat as mud after rain. Next morning, Dad sent a tight text. "Hope you reconsider. Don't embarrass the family." I didn't answer. I wrote in my notebook, "No one gets embarrassed by someone else standing up straight." Then I drove to the VFW. The hall was empty, linens rolled in a corner, dust swimming in sun like trapped rain. Ruiz was already there, arms folded, a bundle of swords leaned against the wall. "I'll handle the board," she said. "You walk the lane." I measured steps and counted like a convoy. 1, 2, 3, breathe. 4, 5, 6, straighten. 7, 8, eyes up. I thought of the ultimatum like a rock in my boot. I didn't dump it. I learned to walk with it until it taught me where to place my feet. At lunch, Mom called. "I'll come," she said, voice small like someone afraid of being overheard. "I'll sit next to your father." I leaned against the car window, wind sang through the seal. "I understand. Don't be angry." "I'm not," I said. "I'm done asking permission." She cried a little, the quiet kind you learn when you keep a house by swallowing noise. That evening we ate simple, 2 bowls of noodles with a hard-boiled egg, green onions. Not fancy, warm as an old coal stove. We didn't talk much. Over dishes, Ethan said, When this passes, you'll see nothing collapses. What deserves to stand will stand. I nodded. The planning phase had begun. I shut the notebook on the 2 columns and slid it, marine between the pages. The ink ghosted onto the next sheet like a watermark I was stamping on my own wedding. Night settled. I laid the blues over a chair to carry to the VFW for a run-through. In the quiet, I heard Dad's line tramp across wood. Don't embarrass the family. I closed my eyes and saw the sword arch lift in my mind, steel drawing a bright dome. I didn't know who would sit, who would storm out, who would clap. I did know that if honor can't make it through a wedding day, it dies on smaller days. I sent Ruiz one last word, proceed. I set my phone face down and ran a hand down the seam of my coat like signing an op order. Outside, leaves worried the curb. A car hissed past, and somewhere very faint I heard metal touch metal, not a threat. Just the sound of my pieces finally locking into place. The VFW hall felt like an empty ship compartment, sun angling through dusty panes, motes floating like fake fog from the gym. I opened my notebook and tore a strip of painter's tape, ran a straight line down the middle of the floor. "We'll call this the line," I said, keeping my voice low so it wouldn't bounce. Ruiz folded her arms, eyes tracking the blue like a battle map. "Lines don't separate people," she said. "They tell them where to plant their feet." I nodded. I'd spent a childhood inside lines other people drew. Today I drew one so the people I love wouldn't drift. We started with chairs. I laid A4 sheets across rows and wrote in marker, family, ward on the left, family service on the right. A few words and the room changed smell, like the air after rain, decision. Pike hauled chairs, Bennett measured spacing. "Ma'am, leave this pocket for the sword team," Bennett said, tapping the floor with her ruler, then snapping it back the way she would on the motor pool lot. Ruiz unwrapped 8 swords, leaning them against the wall like a staff of long notes. 8 NCOs, she said. 4 men, 4 women, proper mix. They know how to keep quiet when the room doesn't. I wrote names. Staff Sergeant Murillo, Sergeant Chu, Sergeant Alvarez, Sergeant King. Names I'd seen muddy and sweating. Names that stand up on beat. I brought the MC in for rehearsal. She arrived with a sheaf of paper and a nervous sheen like she might drop the ceremony if she breathed wrong. 3 bullets, I said. Order, call line, contingencies. Ruiz handed her a laminated card. When in doubt, continue the ceremony. If the left side gets loud, Ruiz said, you keep moving. In uniform, silence is a form of respect. The MC swallowed and nodded like someone being issued a life vest. We assigned ushers, 2 silver-haired VFW vets who'd nodded at me the day I first walked in. We can't stand under steel anymore, one said, hand shaking a little, eyes bright, but we can hold a door. I shook their hands, metal cold, coal warm. They'd seat folks by the map and answer the why are the military on one side. Questions with patient sentences. Next was the flag. A vet dragged out a nicked wooden stand from the storeroom. Put it at the end of the arch, he said. People should move toward a symbol, not around it. I tried the spot. The distance to the chairs was right, no blades scraping cloth. The finial flickered in the AC, and I could already see the sword tips throw light there. It felt like setting the blind spot for a heart. Invites got reprinted. Under our names, the line Ethan and I wrote, Uniforms welcome, your presence is the honor. I mailed that to the right-hand list without worrying whose eyes it would glare in. The left side got the standard card. Invites don't change people, but they announce intent. Ethan suggested a small insert on every seat explaining the sword arch, steel forming a passage as honor moves from your unit to your new family. I drafted it like an SOP, plain language, no sermon. At lunch, the family group chat lit. Tyler posted a photo of a resort chapel, bright, immaculate, expensive in pixels. Thoughts? Dad seen edit and said nothing. Mom typed, "The VFW might feel a bit rough." I stared at the exit ramp they wanted me to take. Then I looked at the tape line on our floor, the chairs settling into their rows, the swords tilted like patient lightning, the flag standing without asking. "No," I wrote, "this is right." The dots blinked, then died. In the afternoon, we ran signal plan into rehearsal. Ruiz told the sword team, voice low, "When the MC says please rise, wait 2 beats, then draw together. Blades up, inside edges kissing. The call is captain on deck. Nothing more." I took the aisle, feeling each screw head through the soles, convoy rules in my head, hold spacing, eyes forward, breathe even. Bennett paced behind me and said just loud enough, "If anyone pops up to make noise, you look forward." I smiled. "Copy." "Not for the ceremony," she said. "For you." We built contingencies like any decent op. If Dad walks out, MC continues, ushers open and close quietly. If someone snickers, the sword team stays blank. If a phone is thrust in my face for the money shot, Ethan shifts 1 step to create a soft wall. I labeled the scenarios A, B, C, Ruiz added D. "If you wobble, look at the flag." I didn't joke. I already touch a folded pocket flag on hard days. Tomorrow, the flag will be too big to miss. Pike proposed a micro detail, shoe pads under 3 spots so my steps would land solid without booming. He slid thin black squares under the runner where no one would notice. "There's a proud nail here," he said. "Don't want you catching." I crouched and found the burr with my fingertip. It bit. A fine red line. I tasted iron. I've tripped on a lifetime of nails no one warned me about. Today I thanked a young hand for finding a few. Ethan tested his groom position, nudged the mic, and said softly, "I don't need to say much. I just need to look at you at the right time." I wanted to tease him, say EMTs who talk like that should come with a warning for nurses, but my throat felt stuffed with cotton. I only nodded. Ruiz stood a few paces off, pretending to sort place cards while her eyes recorded every current. Without looking at me, she said, "People think ritual is steel. It's people. You were very human this morning." That night I reran the lists. Right side, family by service, so thick I requested extra chairs. Left family by blood, just enough. Mom texted me privately, "I'll be there, I'll sit still. If anything happens, I'll hold your father's hand." I read sit still 3 times and it shifted meaning each pass. I typed just be mom. Deleted. Thank you. Sent. Dad didn't text. I set the phone face down like turning a portrait to stare at the grain of the table. Late. Alone. With half the lights killed. The hall held 2 long ropes of light across the floor. I slid the urnet. Marines slip into my white glove right along the vein so it would touch skin when I made a fist. I draped my dress blues over a chair and checked every brass button. From the corner, the sword team traded quiet jokes. Metal chimed now and then, tiny tings like stars falling into a glass. The sound didn't make noise in my chest. It made space. Morning -1, we ran the full. MC clean. Ushers smooth, swords on tempo. I walked through an empty arch, no left side, no right side, just fabric and air. My pulse still ticked higher as if the room was packed. At the end, I faced the flag. The cloth stuck to its staff in the AC draft. I touched it lightly, skin to fabric, and it hissed a thin, private sound. Ruiz's voice floated behind me. "Honor has a sound." I answered in my head, "I speak it now." We finished. I squared place cards, straightened chairs, smoothed the tape line with my palm. I imagined the whisper on the left tomorrow and the quiet on the right. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was clear. Back home, my inbox blinked. An aunt. "Heard you're doing some sword thing. Careful, people will laugh." I didn't reply. I opened the window. The curtain sailed up like a little flag. Ethan came out of the kitchen dusted in flour, attempting pre-made cookies, clumsy and sweet. "Battlefield secured?" he asked. "Secured," I said. Tomorrow we do the one thing left. Stand up. He finished like he'd memorized my doctrine. I lay down and listened to the oven tick and the night traffic slide by. Before my eyes shut, the arch lifted again in my head, 8 blades, the flag at the end, left and right rows, the blue line on the floor. Everything was in place. All we needed was spark. I realized I'd already heard it. The first day I walked into this hall, a faint metal kiss. Tonight it came back clearer, like a spoon tapping crystal. Time. Tomorrow I'll button blues. Ruiz will signal. The MC will speak. Ushers will open. Swords will rise, and I will walk. In my head a convoy beat kept time. Earn it. Earn it. Earn it. I smiled into the dark. If honor's a steel bridge, I've laid enough girders. The last job is to cross it upright. The first sound on my wedding day wasn't music. It was chairs sliding, dry wood on wood. Ushers cracked the doors, people drifted in. Perfume mixed with old timber and pulled a thin ribbon of scent between 2 banks of seats. I stood in a narrow prep room, shoulder to the wall, watching through the crack. Right side, uniforms, spines like survey stakes. Left side, suits, ties, dresses. On faces, the many flavors of waiting. I ran a glove down the seam of my blues and felt the lines stretch my spine all the way to my fingertips. Ruiz leaned in, no knock. "Ready," she said, not asking. I nodded. Inside my glove, the folded scrap rasped my skin. Earn it, Marine. I remembered mud roads, tight straps, breathing so the shake doesn't show. Today I breathed so nothing showed. Not anger, not fear, not permission seeking. The MC climbed the little stage. "Please take your seats." Her voice carried, clean and just enough. The ushers eased the doors shut. I heard Mom murmur something to Dad. Her words sank like a pebble in a pond. Tyler snickered. A cousin cracked a joke. Someone shushed them. I shut my eyes and pictured the strip of blue painter's tape we'd laid down days ago, the line that doesn't divide people so much as tell them where they belong. "Please rise." The words fell over the room like a tablecloth. Bodies unfolded. 2 beats of stillness, then steel. Ting, 1 blade. Ting, a second, then all 8 drawn like a single answer made of light. Inside edges kissed, the arch turned glass clear. I saw myself split into 8 slivers on the steel and rejoin before vanishing. Ruiz didn't look my way. She faced the rows and put a hammer into her voice. "Captain on deck." The air changed color. On the right, uniforms shot upright like springs released. Hands to seams, eyes front. A hush rolled outward and slapped the left bank gentle and firm. A sharp inhale. An O. My father stood not for the custom, but because the room did. He stood the way a man stands for the obligatory group photo. Mom clamped his hand until her knuckles went white. I stepped out. My heels found the pad's pike had hidden, each strike solid as a period. With every step, the glove brushed the note, ballpoint letters tapping my skin like a pulse. I locked on the flag at the end of the arch and didn't touch the eyes I could feel heating my cheekbones. At the first blade, I heard my breath, not fast, just distinct. Each inhale a way to say my own name. Left side now. An ant angled toward another ant. A bit much. A man lifted his phone for the sword shot. The ushers slid a half step, courteous, blocking the lens without making contact. I didn't turn. I let the next swords fill my view, 3, 4, light snowing off steel and landing on my eyelashes. At 5, a silver-haired vet put his palm to his chest. I dipped the smallest nod, almost no one saw. His hand trembled harder. At 6, someone sighed, the sound people make when they realize the movie isn't following their script. At 7, a chair scraped loud. Tyler started to sit before the ritual finished. Dad's hand found his shoulder and drew him back. They shared a look, jawlines identical, set and tired. I kept moving. 8 met me with a thread-thin streak of light, the same bright as the seam I'd just traced. I stepped out of the arch and met Ethan's eyes. He didn't perform. He didn't grin wide. He had the quiet of an ER after the last patient stabilizes. His dog tag winked under his lapel, metal that stayed with us through too many clockless shifts. He offered a hand. I gave him mine. Glove to warm skin, one touch that dropped my heart rate and lifted my posture. Please be seated. Bodies folded like winged things tucking themselves in. The right sat in one motion, the left hesitated, then the wood thumped back to floor one by one. Ruiz withdrew to the flank, recording every ripple with those NCO eyes. The sword team held the arch a beat, then sheathed as one final ting like an amen only I could hear. "We're here," the MC said, "to witness." Her words ran like a creek behind tiny sounds. Fabric whispering over fabric, metal settling into leather, someone clearing a throat from dust or feeling. I spoke my vows steady. I promised to keep my partner safe on roads with and without maps, to listen even when rain on canvas distorts every signal, to name truth even if it costs us sleep, mine included. Ethan's vows were short and earned. I choose you first, even when the task list says otherwise. A few soft laughs on the right, the left cracked in the middle and went silent. When we traded rings, I pressed the glove seam and the paper scraped once more. Earn it. No one heard it but me, but I heard it like a command. The MC presented us. Half a beat of pause. The beat you miss when you mean to object, but the moment has already passed. And then applause, rising from the right and traveling. The left answered with a sprinkle of claps, stray drops after a storm. I turned toward the crowd. Mom dabbed her eyes. Her gaze touched mine and fled to her hand in Dad's. Dad looked at me straight on for the first time all day. No smile, no nod. Just a recalibration, reluctant and quiet, like a man realizing halfway through a job that he needs a different wrench. I didn't want his nod. I wanted him to stop treating me like the wrong-sized nail. In the back row, a VFW gentleman, the one who'd nodded to me that first day, floated a discreet thumbs up. I tipped my chin. That was the nod I needed. When the swords cleared out, Ruiz edged close enough that only I could hear. "Our part's done." "Yes, First Sergeant." She cocked her head. "Yours lasts longer." I smiled with my eyes. "I know." Ethan squeezed my hand. His dog tag bumped my wrist, an old ally arriving on time. The reception loosened. People swapped seats. Whisper currents hopped table to table like small birds. The blue tape was gone so no one would trip, but I still felt it under my feet. On the right, "Ma'am, Semper Fi, proud of you, plain bread filling." On the left, "Fine, I suppose, unexpected." A little intense, napkin thin. I didn't flee to either shore. I stood in the middle like a bridge watch. Dad came to a halt one arm's length away. "Why make me look bad?" he asked. Voice low but not hot. It popped on like a new tasker. "I didn't make anyone look bad," I said. "I refused to bow." He studied me, the iron in his eyes softened a degree. His glance skated over the sheathed sword, the brass, Ethan's face. "It's hard to live with this," he said, not clear who he meant. Ethan answered, simple as a lever. "Then we live with it." Dad turned away. The conversation hung between bulbs like a string of lights no one had plugged in yet. Back into the current. A young Marine who'd run convoys with me took my hand. "Ma'am, today I saw it clear." "Saw what? Who stands where?" I squeezed his shoulder just enough weight that he could feel a frame rising around him. Near the door, the MC sipped water with two steadying hands. I lifted my glass in a little salute. Her shoulders dropped like a swimmer touching the far wall. Photo time. The photographer stood dead center and called, "Family first." I looked at both banks. For a blink, my chest pinched. Then I said, "Family by blood." The faces from the left funneled into the frame. I stayed tall, didn't cant to fit. Click. "Family by service." They flowed in and filled the empty spaces. Swords flanked the shot like two clean borders. The flag was close enough I could hear the fabric kiss the pole. In the middle of that picture, I wasn't taller. I wasn't smaller, I was correct. In place. Lights dimmed, music rose, someone laughed too loud, somewhere else a soda hissed open. I stepped back and took it all in. The arch was down, but in my eyes it still hung there, the bright smear you see after staring at the sun then closing your lids. My wedding had the one thing a luxe ballroom can't purchase. The second when a whole room renegotiates what it thinks it knows about you. And me, first time at any ward event, I didn't feel myself shrink. Ruiz passed and tapped the back of my hand with one finger, a stamp. I touched my glove, the pen stroke under fabric. It wasn't a demand anymore. It was a confirmation. I smiled and looked at Ethan. He didn't need a band to cue us. "We can leave whenever you want," he said. I scanned the room, those in their right places, those still shifting, chairs finally done scraping. I nodded. I'd walked the arch. The rest of the work is living in a way that doesn't betray the steel that just sang. The reception felt like two countries sharing a border. One side talking soft and staring long, the other side laughing big and slapping shoulders. Semper Fi. I stood in the middle with lemonade, still hearing that imaginary strip of blue tape pulling a bright line across the floor and through the room. An aunt leaned in, beautiful but a little much, stretching little like a rubber band about to snap. I smiled, set the glass down, and looked to my table. Ruiz sat straight, hands cupped around a black coffee, eyes like a training range, no judgment, just counting cadence. When the music slowed, Dad stopped one arm's length away, far enough that outsiders couldn't catch the words. "What did this get you?" he asked, no bark, no beg. I touched my glove to the coat seam, that seam feeling like a small bridge I was standing on. "The right to stand." He snorted without humor. "Stand up or push back." "Not the same thing," I said. "I push back on what makes me bow." He glanced at the sword now sheathed, the arch already down. "In life, a girl—" He left it there. I waited. He didn't finish. He only dropped his eyes to the sheathed hilt, weighing it. "Fine," he said. "Live with it." "I am," I answered. No handshake, no hug. Just a clean gap after the words, like a hallway someone finally cleared. Mom pulled me into a hug that smelled like perfume and old wood and made me 8, then 18, then 30. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know how to back you without hurting your father." "You don't have to pick," I said. "You just have to stand." Her eyes shone but stayed bright. She nodded. Some people cross borders with a single nod. Night lowered. The left side sent polite blessings thin as tissue paper. The right side handed over solid, workmanlike good wishes. Ethan brushed my elbow. Time. We thanked everyone. At the door, I turned back to the flag at the end of the aisle. The fabric kissed the pole with a tiny sound. I let that sound close the chapter I'd just written. In the parking lot, the wind smelled like pine sap and unfinished conversations. Tyler kicked gravel and watched the ground. "You won," he muttered. "There wasn't a game," I said. "There was a way to stand." He smirked, then congrats, and offered his hand. I took it. Our palms were dry, no grease, no mud, but between them sat a small stone named habit. I didn't try to bridge it. Tomorrow. In the weeks after, the family group chat lit with rounded questions. "Need any help? When are we doing the in-law dinner? Hope you'll understand." Between the polite veneers, a few hard splinters. Don't overdo it. I read them all and killed notifications. I left Mom's number loud, the rest went quiet. Not a cut, just locking the door I'd been bracing for years. Sometimes honor is just picking which sounds get to enter. Ethan worked long shifts. I ran runs, issue lists, delivery routes, SOPs marked up in red. At night at the sink, CLP clung to my nail beds like an old story that refuses to rinse. I slid the urn at Marine. Scrap into my wallet next to a tiny graduation photo and our wedding card. Some days I'd touch it the way I touch the edge of a flag, not to perform, to remember. One evening, Mom called. "Your father says, let's stop bringing it up," she said, setting the sentence down like a fragile vase. He's busy. So am I said, easy, as long as you're okay. She half laughed without sound. I'm learning to stand. You look good standing, I said. After we hung up, I texted her a picture, me and Ethan in t-shirts, cookie dough all over our hands. She heart reacted and added nothing. Some days a heart icon is a ceasefire. Years moved. I pinned on new rank, switched units, then headed west. Pendleton met me with dry hills, ocean wind, and mornings in gauzy fog. I taught small classes for women Marines prepping to transition, sat with them at dented aluminum tables, sipped bad coffee, and listened to their fear. No one will understand who I used to be. My resume looks empty. What do I do with my hands without a rifle? I framed logistics like a secret language. List, prioritize, deliver. I said, honor doesn't disappear. It changes shape. I didn't tell them about my wedding. I didn't need to. They could tell by how I stood. Ethan moved into EMS management for a wider zone. He still taps his dog tag before night shifts, a wordless prayer. Sometimes he comes home late, jacket carrying smoke and antiseptic. He smiles, drops into a chair, and shows me a photo of a grandfather back in a warm bed because the crew got there in time. I rest my head on his shoulder and listen to his heartbeat, a clear, clean radio channel. One winter day, a Christmas card came from Jacksonville. Mom's handwriting, thin, slanted, on the envelope. I expected the usual family photo by the tree. Inside, a snowy pickup truck. Funny for North Carolina, her note. Merry Christmas, honey. I made pumpkin pie with the old recipe and added too much sugar. I miss you. Underneath, 2 words like someone had borrowed her hand. Stay safe. No name, no period, no apology. I put my palm on the ink and pictured a man holding a pen tight to keep the letters straight. I didn't daydream a movie reunion. I saw a man somewhere relearning the word safe by not asking me to bow. I pinned the card to our fridge with a flag magnet. That tiny flag pulled me back to the VFW, the Arch of Blades, the painter's tape line I'd peeled up but still carried in my eyes. I made cocoa and watched the porch fog. Somewhere a PT group counted reps, their voices barely riding the wind. I thought of field Thanksgiving, the wobbling square of canned pumpkin on a plastic fork, the sentence family you choose. I smiled. I'd chosen right. Spring, I ran a workshop called Name Your Skills. A young Marine scanned her sheet and said, I don't have anything except walking through mud without getting lost. The class laughed. That's risk management, I said. She laughed harder, eyes glassy. After class, she jogged up, shy. Ma'am, I'm scared my family will say I'm making it up. I peeled off a gym glove and traced the vein in my palm where I once hid a paper slip. No one gets to define you by the last name hanging in their living room, I told her. They can hang pictures. They don't get to hang your spine. She nodded and her shoulders found a new square. Payday. That afternoon, Ethan set a small box on my desk. Not a ring, not a ribbon. A thin frame. Inside, the photo from the VFW, family by service. I'm in the center, not taller, not smaller, flanked by faces whose footsteps I know by sound. The steel glare is gone, but the straightness remains. On the back, he taped a note in his neat print. You earned it. I laughed and set it beside the Christmas card, leaving just enough space between them for a little flag. Evening rolled in. Ocean wind carried a low, convoy-like rumble. I opened my old notebook. The inside cover still bore the watermarked dent of Earn It, Marine. I added a line. Earn it, less about fighting every day, more about choosing to stand every day. I shut the book, killed the light, and set my hand over the place on my coat where paper once rubbed skin. Listening to my heart, count a language I've learned by heart. My wedding day ended when the VFW doors closed behind me. The arch didn't vanish. It moved into my chest. Every time I walk into a room where someone says, "Don't embarrass the family," The arch lifts again, thread thin and steel bright, just enough to remind me I've already walked through with my back straight. I don't know when my father will call. I know exactly when I'll unlock. That's the difference between bowing your head and opening a door. Mornings at Pendleton smell like salt and sweat. The post flag whispers when the wind slips by. I salute, fingers to brim, eyes forward. No one gave me permission to stand here. No one can take it. I hear the old muds whisper, the wedding day ting of steel, the soft rasp of a Christmas card sliding under a fridge magnet. They braid into a sentence I don't have to shout. I say it in my shoulders, in my back, in my stride. Earn it.